Well, congratulations on the movie.
Oh, thank you.
It's a wonderful film because it's kind of like from a distance. You go into it thinking that you know what kind of movie it's going to be, like about a middle-aged or older woman, but it's really not because it's a movie. When you look at the characters really closely, there's something in these characters we can all relate to.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Yeah. That was a hope anyway. Yeah.
And I was curious because obviously this movie comes from a very personal place for you and your family. And I was just curious, when it came to writing it, did you ever did you feel this need to be faithful to the events that inspired the screenplay, or did you just use them as a base to jump off of?
I wasn't sure how honest to be exactly. I thought I definitely wanted to tell the story of my mother as a character. I definitely wanted to talk about her moving from New Jersey to Los Angeles to be closer to me after my dad died, but I didn't know how much truth I wanted to put in there. I didn't know if she should be solving crimes or something, so I wasn't really sure how personal to get with it. And then the more I wrote it, the more personal, of course, it got, and the more I felt like I needed to be as honest as possible then about, how annoying she could be, but also how mean I could be, and just how hard it is to grieve really differently with somebody that you care about somebody that you both care about, and so it was weirdly personal, and I just couldn't help it, actually. I felt like I had to. So now maybe I'm regretting it, but no. Yeah.
Well, the grieving process is always different for everybody. I mean, there's not one way to grieve or one right way to grieve.
Right.
As we see here. I mean, she's very cheerful for someone who's lost her husband, it seems. But as the movie goes on, I mean, Susan Sarandon's character is sort of you see, she's kind of avoiding contact almost.
Yeah. That, if you keep other things as close as possible, maybe, it won't remind you of the big gaping hole that's there, of course.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do like that. Of course, she is just a generous person, and that she is just very giving and would probably be doing all of this stuff anyway. But that, of course, she's trying to, make herself feel better by making other people feel better. And I guess that's not a bad lesson to learn or to take from a terrible experience or anything. It certainly is, I think, a great way to help cope is to realize that other people have things that they might need. And even if they are weddings and seemingly frivolous things or something, that there's some kind of pleasure to take from making other people happy, and that only a person like Marnie or certainly my mother could do that.
Absolutely. And because it's great. I mean, I like how you sort of suggest her avoidance, Susan Sarandon's avoidance of things without the use of words.
Right.
And because it's just this subtle little thing that goes on throughout the movie to where you think there's going to be some sort of big moment where she's just going to cry out or something, but it doesn't quite reveal itself that way.
Yeah, good. I mean, grief is strange and it moves in mysterious ways, and I've heard it's like an ocean that the waves keep crashing even if they get further and further apart. They sort of don't get any less strong as they hit the shore, but it was it was interesting to watch my mother, who I felt like was somehow in denial and acceptance at the exact same time. So in a lot of ways it was about just moving forward to play the same song again, keep going, keep driving, place to place, and fill the time, and yet also she felt so grateful for her life and felt so grateful that she was in love with this person and had this history. And so in a lot of ways she seemed better, and than I was, who was kind of in, depression and anger and all the rest. And yet in a way I feel like I got it all out of my system at once. I mean, I'll never be the same exactly, but at the same time I feel like that was what I needed to do, and try to concentrate on other things. And so, it's funny how it translates into this character who, it is very sad, obviously. I mean, of course it's a comedy, and of course she's finding her way through different things, and hilarity ensues, but of course it's about someone who's lonely. It's about loneliness and what it means to be lonely and alone in the room and alone after you've been with someone for 40 years and you know, how your phone becomes your friend and how technology becomes a lifeline to other people. And yeah, that I wanted to stay true to how lonely it actually is and what loneliness means. And so when it was hard to get this film made because it's about a woman of a certain age, people kept saying I had to make the daughter part just as big and you have to see her alone, and I just thought that that's missing the point entirely of really staying with this person and, you know, seeing what your mom's doing when you're not calling her back.
Exactly.
and what a drag it is.
Yeah. I mean, going back to Susan Sarandon, I mean, the thing I loved about her performance is that the character from a distance seems like it could have been a stereotypical Italian mother.
Yeah.
But she avoids that completely.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because it's I mean, you almost expected to fall into a certain trap, but Susan Sarandon's obviously a very bright actress.
Well, she's an incredible actress, and you know, everybody involved didn't want to make something broad, and you know, as much of a character as she actually plays, and how, you know, as much as the accent seems almost not believable, it is. That's what it sounds like. You know, that as much as those things were taken on, we really wanted to tell I mean, you know, peel back the layers of what a meddler is, and not really tell the same story of the hovering mother, and as if it's just coming from this like cultural place or just this maternal place, but you know, that also it's a symptom of what's happening, and it's really about grief and loss and getting by and moving on and opening up your heart again. And Susan's so warm and is so warm and maternal, but you know, really took to playing this character. And I mean, it's weird how specifically it's my mother. I mean, she really did sort of suck the soul out of my mother and put it on screen, and it's been so fun to talk to other people and have other people say, like, that reminds me of my mother, whether they're Italian or, you know, anything, and it's just been surreal. And I think only someone like Susan could have walked that line, you know, and been that fun and playful and funny and allow herself to enjoy the character, to enjoy herself, but keep it real, keep it grounded, and keep it what the story is about, which is, you know, the complicated aspects of being alone and starting over. And you know, it is based on something that I think was pretty brave, which my mother did, which is start over 3,000 miles away in this new big scary city. And you know, not only was she grieving optimistically, but the whole thing was very impressive, and it kind of still is. I mean, of course I'm here, but you know, it is still just deeply impressive that someone can do that after so long. You know? Yeah, that takes a lot. That kind of change doesn't come easy. No. And J.K. Simmons, I thought he was wonderful in this movie. Yeah. I also have to say, he almost gets some stage by his mustache, which is great. Great. It's like another costume for his character. And I'm like, was that your idea or his idea? You know, that was his idea, even though I wanted it on the page, you know, but then when you're there and you're like, oh, okay, and they're going to have to kiss, and do we really want him to be a man with a mustache the whole time? But he had said, and this is true, that, you know, every retired cop on these sets, if you've ever seen them, they have Harleys, and they have, they're like too tan, and they have these mustaches that are just, that do upstage them, and yeah, once it became his choice, I was so excited about it, because I knew the same way that I love that Marnie gets to wear these, you know, my mom's tops from Chico's and stuff, that Zipper gets to, you know, be this full character, and that these two, you know, this West Coast man and this East Coast woman meet and are very different, but that he's not just playing the straight man to her, you know, that he actually gets to be this thing. And so yeah, I love that. I'm so glad choices like that were made. So it was so fun to have someone, I mean, ridiculous to have someone like him. on board, just absolute dream.
Well, I mean, he played Zipper with such ease, it seems, that when he insinuates himself into Marnie's life, it's just perfect. They just fit together,
Oh, that's great. I mean, it was so weird. He doesn't exist in real life. A lot of the characters, some exist, some are conglomerates of people, some are, but Zipper is pure fiction. And so writing a love interest for my mom, when it was on the page, it was like, how do I think of a person who is as non-threatening as possible, but is also still like a sexy, cool man. And so it was interesting to think up on the page, but then once you put J.K. Simmons to it, it became something else entirely. And I was so happy the two of them just have a very natural chemistry with each other, and certainly play off each other really well. But he just has this patient way of dealing with her that I can only hope exists in real life.
That's great. I mean, one scene that really stood out to me in the movie was when Susan visits Rose Byrne's character on the set of her show, and she sees that the show she's written is a lot about her mother, Susan's character, and just seeing her realization of that and sort of realizing that maybe she's meddling a little too much. That's a wonderful universal moment. Sort of like when the truth of something comes out and it floors you in a way that makes you question everything you've ever done.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I mean, I never wanted to talk about the business or, it's pretty easy to write about being a writer, and so I didn't really want to even see my perspective of that. But I always loved my mother's perspective of it. Like, she just always thinks everything's like so cool and like, is like, you got a meeting at Warner Brothers? That's so cool, and it's like, yeah, I'm stressed out about it, so it's work, and yet I love that. I love that you could see the excitement in someone when they're like about to sit down, but then of course face the reality of like what it means to have a writer in the family, which is that they often pull from real life and show a part of you that maybe you haven't seen. And for me, that scene was also so much about, like if the father had lived and what that would have looked like, and it would have been the two of them sort of meddling, so that that's kind of part of his entrance anyway, is sort of like, oh right, and there also was this world where what if that hadn't happened, and what if it was these two people and in her face instead of just her mother alone, and how much more of a sitcom that would be than the story of losing a parent. And so I love how she plays that when seeing him kind of enter the room and everything.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie that could have been done into something very broad or even a sitcom, but the way it is done, it feels a lot more real and a lot more true to life.
Yeah,
which is great, because I mean, I try to think what another studio might have done with this project.
Well, that's why even a scene like that exists in the film, because people were trying to get me to make it for television, and I understand the desire for that, but it also felt, a little sexist. It just felt a little bit like, female characters are allowed to flourish on television, and I thought, well, why? I mean, the whole point of this is to give a character a cinematic life that they, that loneliness doesn't usually provide, that you kind of have to step out of your comfort zone and become the star of your own story. And so for me, it was so important that it stay a film. I mean, not only I don't think I could have lived with it for like 5 years, but I also feel like, that was sort of the point of it. And so I still like getting characters into situations and having, them have fun and strange things happen. But to me, it always felt weird. It felt like a weird little story. So it was always funny it was funny when it started to feel like it was, compared to TV shows, just because I'm like, of course, I think that's a completely fair thing to say, because that's where like Modern Family, that's where you sort of see a lot of these characters collide. But to me, I just thought, well, I just want to take this one character and do a real character study and see, what it's like to live with them for this amount of time, you know, give a beginning and middle and end to a person that might not change very much. And, you know, she's never going to stop calling. And we're not going to stop that from happening. So, like, what, you know, where does that person's story begin? And, you know, for me, it began with buying a phone and calling her daughter.
That's good. And also, I was reading on Wikipedia that as a kid, you used to write fake book reports to get certificates for Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
I was curious, what kind of fake book reports did you write?
Oh, well, I remember, like, I can't believe I didn't get caught, because it would be whatever I thought would be a story back then. So it would be called something like, you know, The Grandmother's Attic, and it would be the name of the author. It would always be like Victoria Lawson, you know, something that I thought was very beautiful sounding. And I would tell them that it was like someone's favorite book, that I couldn't bring it in to show them. And I would make sure that I wouldn't recommend it too highly, so nobody would go and find it and find out that it wasn't real. But I got so many gift certificates from Pizza Hut, and I took my grandma every single month, and we had the best time, and I didn't get caught. And then I found out Dolly Parton did the same thing when she was younger.
Oh, wow.
We have something in common, which is very exciting for me, because I love Dolly Parton. But yeah, that might have been my first attempt at, you know, this kind of fakery.
It's fun. I just remember having that same thing as a kid, doing book reports and getting Pizza Hut costumes.
Book It, right? That was the name of it.
I think that was it. Yeah. I wasn't brave enough to do fake book reports.
God.
But
brave? I don't know if that's the word.
Creative.
Yeah.
Creative.
Uneducated.
Okay. And, I mean, your previous projects include Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, and also Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. And your movies seem to be a lot about human connection and the need for it at the worst possible moment, perhaps.
Yeah.
And, I mean, how would you say your writing has evolved from Nick and Nora to The Meddler?
I hope it's evolved. I don't know. It's weird to see a common thread, you know, because I've certainly written a lot more scripts and they just don't get made, or they haven't gotten made. So it's funny to realize the ones that have and what the common thread is. And perhaps there's a reason, you know, that if they are about human connection, that people would like to see films about human connection or make a connection with that film. Yeah, I guess I really do like writing about good people who are going through a horrible time and how they have to figure it out. And I don't know, maybe that's just a theme for my own personal life. So perhaps I'll evolve out of that as I, you know, evolve out of this stage of grief or whatever it is. And so, but yeah, I started to realize once I saw the posters for all of them that I'm like, oh, I'm codependent. I'm a really codependent person. Clearly, I just, you know, have to tell a story of someone's relationship with someone else. And I guess that's telling. But yeah, I don't know. I hope that I've gained more insight as I've gotten older. I mean, I was 28 when Nick and Nora's came out. I was probably 24, 25 when I started writing it, and so it's been a long time. And you know, I hope to at least just have less time before the next one. You know, so it doesn't, you know, feel like a statement of like like Adele. You know, like her albums are like the years that she is, the age she is. That's how I sort of feel at this point. I'm like, well, this is me now. So I don't know. Hopefully I start to become independent, you know, and there's just one person on the poster.
Well, I look forward to that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
You bet.